Hi everyone. Hello. Hello, hello. Welcome. I know the Twitch comments are usually a little bit delayed. So hello, welcome everybody, all 14 of you. I'm just waiting a bit until we start at 12 o'clock. I'm just here to chat with you all, get you excited, get you pumped for our chat. I'm like an energy DJ. That's what I am. So welcome all of you. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat if you want to, and where you all are from. Is it hot out there wherever you are in the world today? Or is it cool because it's probably nighttime? I'm very curious to know. Hello, welcome. I'm not sure what that's. Oh, that probably means like it's hot, though. I know what that's like. All right, well, feel free to, get what you need. Maybe start thinking of your questions that you would like to ask, or just, get comfortable, get excited. We'll get started in 3 minutes. So feel free to use this time to get anything you need to get. And I'm going to make sure to display to let people know that we're starting in a few minutes. Hello, hi, welcome. Hello, welcome. Wow, lots of people saying hi. Hi. Hello, welcome. All right, so let me go ahead and remove this banner. So hi everyone. Hello. Hello, hello. It's officially 12 o'clock. Before I call up our special guest to come up on stream, I wanted to say hi to everybody. Hello, and introduce myself. So I'm Fazia, and I'm a coach with on the other side, with Major League Hacking. And as part of Hacktoon this weekend, we're going to be having a nice fireside chat with Technical Sergeant Kristopher Jaynes. And we're going to be talking to him about his career, the U.S. Air Force, and, all the advice he has to offer us younger people who are still in school. So I'm very excited to talk to him today. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to put in the chat. And I'm going to call him up now. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well.
Welcome,
How are
chat.
you?
I'm doing all right.
Lots of people telling you hi. Hi.
How's it going, chat? Hope everyone's going to have a great weekend. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. All right. So while we're waiting for more people to show up, I'm going to go ahead and just introduce you all to Technical Sergeant Jaynes and just let you know who he is and his background, and then we'll dive into the questions. So Technical Sergeant Jaynes is the non-commissioned officer in charge of systems control, 50th Space Communications Squadron in Colorado. So he serves as a lead coordinator for plans and implementation, maintaining and decommissioning over 1,300 circuits supporting 7 of the Department of Defense space programs. And he enlisted in the Air Force in June 2009 out of Arkansas, and upon graduation of basic military training, attended the Computer Systems Control Technical School of Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi. After graduating technical school, Technical Sergeant Jaynes was assigned to the 86th Communications Squadron as a technical control facility technician. After 2 years, he moved to the 1st Combat Communications Squadron as an infrastructure technician and eventually became an infrastructure trainer. During his 5 years at the 1st Combat Communications Squadron, he deployed to Ethiopia in support of Operation Trident Reach, Israel in support of Exercise Juniper Cobra, and Greece and Romania supporting the theater security package. Prior to assuming his current position, Sergeant Jaynes served as an enlisted accessions recruiter at the 343rd Recruiting Squadron in Nebraska. He entered the United States Space Force on February 4th, 2021. So we have lots of questions for Sergeant Jaynes because he has a very accomplished background. And I'm super excited to get to know you today.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So the first question I want to know is you have had a very long career in the U.S. Air Force and now for the U.S. Space Force. But what made you decide to become a technologist in the first place?
So it's kind of like a chance type of thing, right? So when I joined the Air Force back in 2009, I swore into the delayed entry program started it as a junior in high school and finally swore in the beginning of my senior year. And at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I already loved technology. Back then we were jailbreaking iPod touches and playing video games that on like calculators. Remember what were the little games like Brick? It's like Brick Breaker, or it's like a little guy that you can jump over bricks and all this stuff in math class. It was dumb, but like I was already fascinated with technology. So when my recruiter asked me if I wanted to go in with an electrical aptitude area, I'm like, okay, perfect. Something electronics. I'm already interested in that. Let's do it. So by the end of basic training, I received my job as a 3C2, which at the time was a tech control specialist, where you manage long haul communications, essentially from city to city, country to country, across the world. So I kind of just fell into that position. And then just over the years, I've remained fascinated with it, learning as much as possible, always trying to stay, ahead of the curve, which is pretty difficult to do in the technology field, because as soon as you master one craft, well, you're already 3 revisions behind and you got to relearn everything again. So it's definitely been very interesting. And that's what I kind of love about the Space Force so far, is it's so new. we're adapted to new technologies and new ways of adapting technologies to get closer to the curve. So we're always working with like the latest equipment, the latest technology, to keep both the military safe and the general public safe as well.
Interesting. Well, that's cool to know. I feel like it's very familiar, like the way you went into technology is very familiar for a lot of us who are studying it in college. So that's really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm very curious. I heard you talk about satellite communications, and also like it was in your bio a little bit. Could you describe what that is for those of us who don't know what that is and what it means to the U.S. Air Force?
So right now my technical career field is cyber transport, but to normal people, what does that mean? Are you driving a truck full of computers or something? What does that mean? So where I'm positioned at right now is we manage the satellite communications, not in like an antenna form, but more of just managing all of the communications between all the ground control stations for GPS around the world, all of the different space networks. Anything that touches a satellite comes through my office. So it's very, very interesting. So that's why I kind of call it just satellite communications, because I mean that's essentially what it is, So we're going through a big transition where it's less of us managing the IT element, right? So like your routing, your switching, your normal communications, and going into more of the cyber defense, what you guys are promoting as well, the hacking of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Trying to find out who's in our networks, how are they getting information, how can we harden the networks to make sure they can't get in again. And you're seeing it all over the news, the ransomware attacks and all that stuff. Well, the Space Force is right there helping mitigate and kind of repair things to try to learn from these incidents to prevent it from happening again. I mean, it's going to happen again. We know that, but let's try to mitigate the loss as much as possible.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Interesting. See, now whenever you talk about what happened in, I know in the DMV it happened too, like with the gas, where like it was so,
right.
Right. Whenever you talk about it with your friends, you can be like, hey, I have a little bit insight of what the U.S. Space Force does, and it's kind of connected.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So I wanted to know if you're able to share, what kinds of technologies have you worked with in your past roles in the U.S. Air Force and now U.S. Space Force?
Absolutely. So when I first joined and my first position for the first 2 years, it was a lot of old equipment, right? We were managing communication links on equipment that was built in the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
So that pretty old stuff. It's old school ones and zeros kind of technology, right? So I've worked anything from legacy equipment. Once I moved over to the Combat Communications Squadron, it was heavily reliant on networking. So your Cisco routing, switching, telephones, both analog and IP phones, all that stuff. And then recruiting, I had a laptop, so that was cool. And now that I'm back into communications, it's some of the legacy equipment, but it's also the state-of-the-art networking equipment that one piece of fiber can provide the internet for the entire DC area. And we just have racks of them. So it's a lot of equipment. It's very difficult to learn everything about the equipment. So you kind of just pick your poison, find one piece of equipment that you really enjoy working on, learn as much as you can about it, and then move on to the next piece of equipment. But essentially understanding the theory across the board helps you learn how, the different nomenclatures work, the syntax of commands. It's just the same thing as computer programming. You may have started in C++ and then you move over to JavaScript and you understand how coding works, but you just had to learn the difference in syntax and that sort of thing. And then you just pick up from there.
Yeah, that's very true. I feel like I kind of did something similar to that because my computer science curriculum is like based solely on Java. So we kind of did a little switch where like they started teaching us JavaScript, and it's just been like, you're right, the theory I understand, but you still have to, adjust the syntax because it's a different language entirely.
Exactly. When I first started college a long time ago, I started out in like IT, right? Like network management. And then I moved into computer science, and I got about one class in and realized I am awful at math. I was struggling through the review for the math class. I'm like, if I'm struggling now on 100 level math, like I don't remember what it was. I don't even remember the math course. It might have been calculus. And I'm just like, if I'm struggling now, there's no way I'm going to get through to the end here. So then I moved it over to marketing. And then I'm like 9 classes away from a degree in marketing. And then I'll probably roll right into getting another degree in cybersecurity. That way, once I do decide to get out, there's different avenues. Who knows? Maybe I can go into marketing for a computer programming company or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the good thing about technology. It's very pervasive. It's like everywhere. So
exactly.
All right. So I know you talked about satellite communications. You talked about how cool it was, and we were all so wowed by it. But if you could say what has been your favorite role that you've had in the U.S. Air Force and in the U.S. Space Force till date?
So far, it was definitely my time at the 1st Combat Communications Squadron, and it's for multiple different reasons. Between the legacy behind it, it's been the squadron itself has been stationed around the world as far as like where their home base was. Like it was in Korea, or it was in Vietnam, it was in other bases in Germany. It was all over the place, right? So I had a legacy behind it. And then the opportunity to just deploy anywhere in Europe, Africa, and a little bit into Israel area. A lot of unique opportunities, things that I never imagined that I would have been able to do, or places that I would ever have seen. Tickets to go on vacation to Africa is pretty expensive, but the government paid for me to go to Ethiopia for 6 months, work with some drone operations out of there, and chase zebras around a real life safari. Like those aren't things you get in college or just sitting around the house, So definitely at the time it was tough because you're constantly getting ready for a mission, and then that mission doesn't happen. So you wasted some time, but at the same time, you're now more prepared the next time you have to go out on another mission. So it definitely matures you a little bit, seeing more of the world, experiencing different cultures, how they interact with each other, different foods. I'm pretty picky, but I still try to get out as much as I can to learn other cuisines, if you will. But no, definitely the 1st Combat Communication Squadron was my kind of like the highlight of my time so far. And I spent 5 years at that squadron. So it's a good amount of time.
Interesting. All right. Well, I would like to be able to, that sounds really cool. And I'm definitely going to pay attention to what you say about the next steps for joining after the chat, because now I'm very curious about,
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, yes. So I'm very curious to know if you have any career advice for all of us folks who are participating in this weekend's hackathon. Like some of us in here are still in, some of us, are still in high school. Some of us are like, still in college. If you could just, give us general career advice, what would you say?
Don't be afraid to take chances. While you're young, you don't know 100% what you want to do for the rest of your life.
That's true.
Right? Your high school teachers or your professors may tell you that, hey, you know what you want to do the rest of your life. But in reality, I mean, you're still developing even when you graduate college at 22, 23 years old. So don't hesitate to take a chance. And definitely the Air Force and Space Force is a very good way to take a chance, learn, explore, and especially in the STEM fields. whether it's enlisted or officer. And specifically for the Space Force, it is all STEM related career fields. The only exception is acquisitions, and that's purchasing and contracts and all that stuff. Everything else is cyberspace, whether it's cyber defense, satellite communications, like the real satellite communications, working on antennas that are directly linking with satellites. Your cyber defense, like I already said, your computer networking, your computer programming, like all of that is the Space Force. So there's a huge focus in it, and you can take your experience and your education in STEM related degree plans and apply it to the Space Force. You're going to be learning the same things, and you're going to expand on it. And you can take that knowledge base to learn new equipment, new architecture, train others. I mean, there's, as everyone knows, like there's so much to cyberspace. There's so much to technology that it's not going to stop. Even if AI takes over the world, right? Technology is still not going to stop. We're still going to be pushing forward. So definitely take a chance on the Air Force and the Space Force. Learn more about yourself, travel the world, take advantage of all the opportunities you can now. Because even if you do a 4-year enlistment, if you join right out of high school, you're at 22 years old, and now you're coming out of it with no college debt. You're coming out of it with some sort of unique experience that your friends don't have, and you have a little bit more of a direction in life. And if that direction in life was not provided by the Air Force, you want to do something completely different than what you did in the Air or Space Force, well, now you have the money to go to school, right? You have all the benefits of being a veteran, for like employment opportunities that have like veteran preference. Like there's so many different opportunities that open up by just taking that first jump and taking a risk and going into the Air or Space Force.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to internalize that. I hope you all heard that. Don't be afraid to take risks and explore, because we're young. We have that as an advantage. So
yep.
I'm gonna keep that in mind as I go into my senior year of college.
And COVID kind of it opened some eyes, right? Yeah. As people are starting to unfortunately lose jobs, or that job is just non-existent anymore. Right. The military was still running. We still had to take care of the mission. So we were still getting paid. We're still working. A lot of people working from home. So we kind of molded the future in that sort of thing. Right. So it definitely opened a lot of eyes as far as like how stable your job is, or what you can do with it.
Interesting. Okay. So in tangent with your advice about, not being afraid and, taking risks and exploring, in your opinion, where do you think technologists who are young, fresh out of high school, maybe fresh out of college, where do you think they can have the biggest impact in the U.S. Air Force or U.S. Space Force?
Really, any career field. The people that are coming into the Air and Space Force nowadays are some of the smartest that we've ever seen in the history of the military. Okay. The education that people are having, the experience that people are bringing, it's unprecedented. Mm-hmm. So bring that experience with you. Like you're not wasting it now. Bring it with you and just do it. I mean, it's as easy as that, So, yeah, I mean, you can apply that to really any career field in the military. Like we have in the Air Force, you have pest management, which on the surface it doesn't sound very fulfilling, but controlling hawks that are getting birds off a flat line so the planes can fly, or people, I mean, there's skunks in a tent when you're deployed or something weird like that, like there's a job for everyone. But as far as like the cyberspace realm, we need as many people as possible, because that realm is only getting larger, right? That's true. We need that experience from people. the Space Force as a whole only has, I think the last numbers I saw were 6,500 active duty Space Force Guardians.
Oh, wow.
Compare that to the Air Force that has approximately 340,000 people.
Mm.
So we have to, we're definitely a lean force. So we need as much experience and as much motivation from the people as possible to get the job done.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Okay, let me give one quick announcement for everybody. If you are just joining, because I see the numbers increasing, I'm talking to Technical Sergeant Kristopher Jaynes, who's in the U.S. Space Force, and I'm asking him some questions. But if you have any questions about what his job is like or what he does, put it in the chat and I'll get to them towards the end. All right. So you've talked about, younger people or even just people really like at this hackathon in this chat to just not be afraid to take the risk and go for it. I wanted to know, how has your experience and your training so far helped you improve as an individual? And what about it, I guess, helped you with improving as an individual?
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, I mean, when it comes to going into a new position, you're kind of hesitant about it, right? Especially if it's not a position that you thought you would go into. For example, before I left Germany, I was there for 7 years. So we were definitely ready to leave. Like that was the start of our family. I got married when I was over there. My wife and I, we had met in high school. We got married soon after I moved to Germany. So getting her over to Germany and adjusted into married life. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, we had our first kid, and then a couple years after that, we had our second kid. So that was like the first chunk of our life, of our adult life. I was in the process of going to White House Communications Agency. So for that, you need a higher than top secret clearance. Like all cyber career fields have a top secret clearance. Well, to go work at the White House, you had to have an even higher top secret clearance. So right. I was getting scheduled for my polygraph to continue the process. Well, as fate has it, I got selected for recruiting. I did not want to be a recruiter. Right. I wanted to stay in the technology field. That's where my interests were. But and what I told all my applicants over the 4 years that I was a recruiter was the Air Force gave me two choices: stay in, become a recruiter, or get out and start my civilian adventure. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not at 20 years yet. I'm not getting out. So let's do it. So my 4 years in recruiting kind of helped me understand like things may not go your way, but you can make the best of it and learn from it. Mm-hmm. So things like public speaking, being able to get to know people, and that's a big thing on leadership nowadays. Is it's less of, hey, do this because I told you to. It's knowing the people you're leading and helping them in their endeavors, and then you get better work performance out of them at the end of the day. So definitely learning different leadership traits, again, how to talk to people, and just having that, gaining that thrive to continue learning, and not just learning your own job. Like at Combat Communications, for example, we're going out setting up internet for an entire city with 11 people. So you need to learn other people's jobs so you can either help them, or if they're not around, you can solve the problem as it comes up. So just continue that drive to learn and just staying flexible. Things are constantly changing. In the cyberspace realm, things are always changing. As soon as you get comfortable, it's going to change again. So those are kind of the big experiences that I've taken away so far over my last, I hit my 12-year mark last month.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So at least another 8 years until I'm eligible for retirement, and who knows where my career takes me from here. But it's definitely shaping, who I am as a person over the course of the last 12 years.
Oh, wow. See, that resonates with me when you talk about like, being dealt a fate that like it's not necessarily what you wanted in the beginning, but then, taking it and accepting it. Because I feel like as young people, or even people in college too, like there's so many things that are out of your control and like things that happen.
Right.
It's like, oh my God. And what's the alternative really? Like, what are you going to do about it? You kind of have to
Right.
take a lesson from it and use that to propel yourself forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, you talked about, you getting to 12 years very soon. If you are able to share, if you have any dreams and hopes that you want to share, what do you think, or what would you like for the next steps in your career to be? What do you want the future to look like for you in general?
Yeah. So right now I'm applying for a lot of different special positions within the Space Force. Can't really go into details of what those positions are,
Of course.
but pretty important positions, I would have to say, as far as the defense of our space operations. But definitely getting promoted is a big one. Everyone likes more money, but being able to lead bigger teams that are going to continue doing outstanding work and propelling the Space Force forward. Continuing to mold what the Space Force even looks like, how it works, how it operates. We're only a year old or a year and a half now, as far as being our own branch of the military. So very, very fresh. And the Air Force has been around for almost 75 years, and we're still learning.
That's true.
Yeah, definitely leading bigger teams, doing more with the space programs as a whole. Get to at least 20 years, and then figure out if I want to stay in longer from there. I got 4 kids now, so kind of trying to time it out where when I retire, like the kids are all out of high school and in college, or maybe even in the military. I know a couple of them. I mean, they're young. They're like, I want to go in the Space Force too. I'm like, well, let's do it. I mean, you got 12, 13 more years until you can, but hey, more power to you. So yeah, hopefully finishing up my first bachelor's degree next year, work on a second bachelor's degree, work on some certifications. The big certifications nowadays is like CISSP, which is huge for cybersecurity. And we'll see. I mean, planning by ear. I'm out here in Colorado, and this is like one of the hubs of the Space Force program. I literally sit right behind the people that are talking to the rockets that are being launched from both East and West Coast. So just soaking up all the opportunities I can now while I'm here. Because once I'm out, I mean, you really see that your time in the military is very limited, and it's not your entire life. So it's trying to prepare for the outside afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely something that we forget, that like your time in there is not limited. Like you're not, like you can do, like there's so many different paths that you can take your life on.
Yeah. I can retire at 38 years old and have a paycheck the rest of my life from the Space Force, and then continue on and work whatever I want to do. I can go be a Walmart greeter if I wanted to. I don't think they take anyone under the age of 70 for that job, but hey, maybe they'll make an exception.
Yeah. See, so that's definitely something that at least I know I forget often. So I'm glad you reminded us about that. So we have somebody in here asking, what's the process for joining the Space Force? Are you able to share that with us?
Absolutely. So there are no dedicated Space Force recruiters. What you have to do is go talk to an Air Force recruiter. And if you just type in spaceforce.com, it will redirect you to the Air Force website, but a dedicated Space Force page on the website. So you can get information about careers, descriptions, education, all of that. And you talk to an Air Force recruiter and let them know, I'm interested in the Space Force. To go into the Space Force, you have to be interested in the cyber or intelligence career fields, because that is the basis of the Space Force. If you want to be a medical technician, Space Force doesn't have it, unfortunately. Nothing stops you from getting a degree in it, but your job in the Space Force will be cyber or intel and maybe even like contracting. I think they may have a few positions for that, but definitely intel and cyber heavy. So let them know you want to join the Space Force. The process looks pretty much identical, except your paperwork, when you go process, will say Space Force and not Air Force. So you have a dedicated Space Force flight at basic training. So everyone that you're going through basic training with are Space Force. You'll get extra training once you get to your first base or Space Force specific. But it all starts by just talking to an Air Force recruiter. And don't be scared of talking to them. They may seem, you see the uniform and you're kind of like, oh no, they're scary. No, they're just, they're normal people just doing their job. You know, all they want to do is help you at the end of the day. That's all they want. They want to make sure that they see you be successful in whatever life choices you make.
Yeah, I remember in my high school, I'm sure people who are, virtual now, but like at my high school, we used to have like the Air Force recruiters and in their uniforms. I was definitely afraid of them. I wish you had told 17-year-old me this. Maybe I would walk to them.
That's why when I was a recruiter for the 4 years, I just got back into the normal career field back in March. But for the last 4 years, I wore civilian clothes a lot. I was shorts and a band T-shirt because I mean, if the people coming in saw like I'm just a normal person, like it helps them. It helps break down that barrier, of they're just trying to get me in. It's like no, like this is what we got. How can this fit the mold of what you want to do?
Exactly.
Because I mean, we've all been there. We've all of us that have joined the military in any branch, we've all been through the recruitment process, so we all know how it worked.
Yes. All right, so we have our next question where somebody's asking, what made you choose the Air Force over the other branches?
Okay. So my dad was Air Force for 20 years. He retired the summer between my sophomore and junior year of high school. I didn't really care for high school much. So I didn't really care to go to a traditional college. I kind of had some self-reflection that I would probably get swallowed alive if I were to go to, like, I graduated high school down in Bentonville, Arkansas. If I would have gone to Fayetteville, Arkansas for the University of Arkansas, like I would not have been successful. So I kind of understood that about myself at that time. And I took the ASVAB at the school. And I don't know if anyone in chat or anyone else like remembers taking the ASVAB in school. Most people are like, "Oh, great! This is another standardized test. I'm just gonna answer C down the board because I'm tired of taking tests." Well, I took it seriously. I ended up scoring a 64 the first time overall, which isn't bad. But the career fields I wanted needed a higher score, so I retook the ASVAB. I got the higher score. I went and just to evaluate my options, I went to talk to the Army. Did not like the experience. They were very pushy on trying, because of my ASVAB score, they were trying to make me go, it was like, what was it called? Like psychological something. It was essentially getting in the hearts and minds of the people. And I'm like, it's not anywhere close to what I want to do. So, and then the Navy was trying to recruit me as well. But I didn't want to be on a ship 6-7 months out of the year. I don't want to be in a submarine. So I'm like, no, the Air Force is what I'm going to do. Right. So then once I committed to that, the end of my junior year, I've stuck with it ever since. And then once they came up with the opportunity for Air Force personnel to transfer to the Space Force, I applied for it as soon as I could. Like, I didn't know I had to have paperwork to apply for it. Otherwise, I would have applied May 1st of last year. But I had to get a document signed by my commander. So it took 5 days for me to apply, but I applied right away. And a big thing for applying was being a part of a brand new branch that hasn't happened in at the time like 74 years or so. But my great grandfather actually transferred from the Army Air Corps to the Air Force in 1947. So like my dad, he still has the transfer paperwork from when my great grandfather transferred. So to have like someone else in the family transfer to a brand new branch it's an honor. I mean, it's really cool to have that kind of opportunity. And I jumped. I knew nothing about it. I had never worked with space in my life. Why not? Why not just do it and find out what happens from there?
Exactly. Yeah, which is kind of in line with what you've been, telling us the entire time about like exploring and not being afraid to try new things.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I feel like I know the answer to this question, but it looks like we've convinced more people from North America who want to join the Space Force. Can people who are Canadians join the Space Force?
No, they cannot. The only way a Canadian can join the Space Force is if they were to get a 10-year residency card in America or become a U.S. citizen. However, I'm sure there's partnered space programs between the U.S. and Canada. So you can look into doing not necessarily Space Force, but space-related career fields for the Canadian space program. So I'm sure they have some sort of program for them.
Cool. All right. And then another person asks, what would you say are the important qualities of a Space Force member? And I'm curious to know if you could also like apply this to like the U.S. Air Force in general.
Absolutely. It's the same thing across the board.
Okay.
Motivation and will to learn.
Ooh.
Right? So motivation, again, taking risks, stepping out of your comfort zone and just do it. The motivation to just find a problem and to fix it, right? It's pretty incredible what you can do with just a little bit of motivation. And then the will to learn, like I said earlier, you're always behind the curve when it comes to technology. So having the will to learn, to not stay stagnant in your life and what you know now, push yourself forward and keep pressing forward and learning as much as possible. Ask as many questions as you can. Why does I have this connection between this base and this base? How does that work? Why does it work? What equipment doesn't go through? Like, how does that work? Always asking questions, not staying stagnant, and just keep pushing forward. I mean, that's kind of, I feel like that should be a motto or something like that. Like some new Nike motto or something, just push forward.
Absolutely. All right. So motivation and will to learn and just push.
Absolutely.
All right. So the next question says, the world is constantly changing. How do you see the Space Force improving the U.S. or the world itself? If you're able to share. I feel like this is probably something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we're doing it right now, right? So take GPS, for example. Your location services on your phone, your computer, all of that, right? It's pretty old at this point. So we're already launching rockets into space to refresh the system. Just about 3 weeks ago now, the Space Force just launched, in partnership with SpaceX, launched the GPS-3 satellite, right? And once again, stage 1 landed safely, and the fairings landed safely. So keeping the technology fresh, even in space, is very important. And GPS in itself, it supports 4 billion people around the world.
That's true.
Imagine that, 4 billion people. And it affects more than just like the location services on your cell phone. Think about all the stock markets, right? They are down to the millisecond for these trades to happen. That's all running off of GPS timing. So if that timing gets off by a fraction of a second, well, things can crash. Your traffic lights start crashing. You know, I don't know if you remember the movie Live Free or Die Hard, right? With Bruce Willis. It was a Die Hard. I don't know. It's like the fourth or fifth movie. I don't even remember in the series. But they had a fire sale where like they took down and took control of the communications infrastructure of the entire U.S. Now, obviously, that's a movie, but I mean, how far from reality is that? You have, you know, these groups of hackers sitting in a basement somewhere, literally taking over the meat packing industry. Who are the ones that were just hacked just recently? Just like 2 days ago. I don't even know who was affected by it.
Oh.
But like they're taking control of people's information. You know, that's it's pretty important that we stay ahead of the curve and we stay on our A game, learn as much as we can. That way we can help mitigate these attacks, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, that's kind of the smoking gun is it's going to get worse. There's no way around it. Technology is moving way too fast for it not to get worse. But luckily for the general public, the Air Force and Space Force are dang good at their jobs. So we'll get it figured out, and we'll continue helping the world stay safe in this cyberspace realm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So, is there anybody who has any questions before I ask my last question? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Or any comments really that one thing that you really took away from this chat. I know for me, this is going to encourage me to just do it. Literally just go and just do it and not be afraid to try new things. So while I'm waiting for whoever has any last questions or concerns, I'm going to ask you my final question. So if you are able to share, what is like your favorite memory that you've had in your like 12-year or almost 12-year career in the military? Just like a favorite memory that just brings you joy when you think of it.
Cool. I mean, obviously, other than, my wife and 4 kids, just in general. And it's funny because it's not even like military related at all. Mm-hmm. I love music. So when I was out in Germany, a buddy of mine had just come back from a big rock festival called Rock am Ring, which was done at the Nuremberg Ring out in Germany, where they all the car companies bring their cars over to test. You can drive your own car there. It's a really cool track. Well, they would do a festival there. He came back and I was like, all right, I want to go to a music festival now. So it was like a Monday, I want to say. And we had found a festival called the Grass Pop Metal Meeting. And it was a metal festival out in Belgium, out in the middle of a farm.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, cool, let's do it. Let's go. So we drove, it was like 4 hours up there. We camped out and it was just music from 11 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock the next day for 3.5 days. Oh. And it was just like having the time of my life, seeing all these bands that I've wanted to see my entire life and finally seeing them live at an environment with people from Belgium, France, people from Spain were coming there, the Netherlands, Germany, even like other military people were there. It was something that like I would have never experienced had I not gotten stationed over in Germany. Right. And it was a blast. And I went 2 years later. I was going to go the next year, but I was deployed to Romania, which is all right. I mean, I never thought I would go to Romania, so why not? So I went back in 2016 and did it all over again. So I'm waiting for COVID to kind of release its reins a little bit, so get back out and seeing some live music. That's what I'm here for. I'm not wearing this uniform 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I live my life on the outside as well.
Yeah, I think that's something like I know, especially when I was like much younger, like in high school, that was a misconception I definitely had. Where like thinking it was like your entire life when it's, you know, you still get the weekends off, so it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to take advantage of Colorado while we're here. So we went to the Garden of the Gods. Like every day I wake up and drive to work, I'm looking at Pikes Peak. It's off the horizons. Like I see the Rocky Mountains every single day I come to work. So we're taking the kids out for hikes, getting them involved. I need to go out to Red Rock Amphitheater where they have a lot of concerts out there, and they do yoga, I guess, out there too. It's like whatever works, I guess. So, but get out to some Rockies baseball games. The All-Star game is coming here. Next week? So just trying to take advantage of, you know, where I'm at, because again, time is limited. Who knows? I'm going to be here until for the next 2 or 3 years. I could be here longer, or I could leave at that time. So soak it all up.
Exactly. Right. And it looks like somebody's kind of agreeing with you when you talked about the music festival in Belgium, but somebody's saying, I think they're also a veteran, but they're saying that it was the best TV station ever. So
definitely. It was a blast. And it's funny that too, because again, going back to being 18 years old, when I found out I was going to Europe, I'm like, I don't want to go. That's awful. I want to be close to family. And then I get over there and, you know, disgruntled 19-year-old, I'm like, I didn't get my way. But then, you know, starting to get out, going, seeing different cities, living 45 minutes from France, we just got in the car and just drove. It kind of, again, you mature over time, and things aren't as bad as what they seem. And then ended up staying there for 7 years. It was supposed to be only 3 or 4 years. Ended up staying for 7 years. So it was I definitely agree. It's the best location.
Okay. And I feel like I know the answer to this question because you talked about it throughout the chat, but somebody's asking, will being in the Space Force require you to go into literal space?
Not necessarily. There was one, what was his rank? I think he was a colonel, astronaut for NASA who did his Space Force transfer from the International Space Station. So there are Air Force, Space Force. I don't know about Army and Marines, but they're astronauts that they work at NASA. But me personally, unless they somehow offer incentive rides on a rocket, I guess, I will not be going to space. But if that opportunity came up, I will definitely do it.
Oh, interesting.
I would definitely do it. Why not? Right? I mean, you have Jeff Bezos. He's going to be going to space here in a couple weeks, and Branson, he just launched his own rocket off the side of an aircraft, and he went into lower orbit. Like, why not? If they can do it. I mean, they have billions and billions and billions of dollars, but hey, why not?
Yeah, actually, why not? Yeah, that's a good answer. Why not? You kind of talked about this a little bit too when you talk about the important qualities, but I guess if you have any advice for somebody who's actually already been recruited into the Space Force or the Air Force or the military, what would you tell them? So they're in it already.
Right. Try to, how can I put it? Try to let go of like how you thought before you joined compared to how you think afterwards. Open your mind up to, again, learning new experience or learning new things, experiencing new things, just being open, right? I don't know if recruiters will tell people this or not, but some tell you don't volunteer in basic training. Don't volunteer for anything. Well, why? People are going to get selected anyways, so why not control your own destiny and volunteer for it? And maybe something will come of it. You know, maybe you'll learn something you didn't know previously. Maybe you volunteer in basic training for kitchen duty. where you're, I don't know, making sure the water fountains are working, or you're cleaning dishes, Well, while you're there, hey, maybe you get ice cream. Who knows? Or you're going to meet someone that maybe you guys went to the same high school, Maybe you're from the same town and you didn't know, or, I mean, shoot, maybe you're related. Who knows? Like, it's pretty incredible. Like, even since I've been stationed here, I've met people that were deployed to Iraq the same time that my dad was back in 2005. Like, it's crazy what you experience if you just not necessarily let go of your past, but just not let your past control what you're going to do in the future. Like, there's so many things out there, so many opportunities for you. Just open up to the opportunities.
Interesting. All right. So we have the person who had mentioned about Europe being early, and that being the best place they had, and they're just sharing a comment about how they were stationed in Italy. So that's pretty cool. So that's where they are.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh yeah. So someone's asking an unconventional question. Did you watch the Space Force Netflix series, and did you like it?
I definitely watched it, and I loved it.
Oh, yes. There you have
it. I loved it. I was kind of hesitant at first, not because, it was Space Force, but like the reviews were like, oh, the comedy didn't really work. It wasn't funny. But then I watched it, and I think a lot of military people would get the humor of the show.
Interesting.
A lot of for example, when everyone's meeting around the round table at the Pentagon, and the Coast Guard is like, hey, I'm not going to get made fun of anymore. Well, even the Coast Guard still gets made fun of because they're the Coast Guard. Nothing against them at all, but it's just, it was like, it matched up perfectly with what actually happens. And it's funny because my best friend in high school, he's in the Coast Guard, and he's actually stationed an hour north of me now, like 15 years after, or not 15, like 10 years after high school. It's kind of a small world, but definitely the humor. Sorry, my cell phone was about to go off. The humor was definitely a plus. I hope they make a season 2.
Interesting.
The base doesn't exist though. That's in the TV show. The little town with the little gas station and the post office, that exists, but that whole utopia does not exist.
Interesting. Well, maybe I might spend my Friday evening watching that and at least seeing an episode, and I know what you all are talking about.
definitely do it. It was a good watch. I was surprised at how good it was, and I love Steve Carell because my entire time in Germany, I would binge watch The Office like 4 or 5 times. I'm deployed. I'm watching The Office. So anything Steve Carell, I'm gonna watch.
Yes, I love The Office too. I always recommend to all my friends, except for the first season. The first season, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree, but the first season was not my taste. But then the second season and onwards, incredible.
Absolutely. That's why you had to listen to the actor who played Kevin Baumgartner. He's the actor that played Kevin.
Yeah.
He has a podcast that it is an oral history of The Office. So it goes from the inception all the way through the finale and the reunion. It breaks down some interesting perspective on the TV show that you didn't know before.
Interesting. Well, I'll definitely. Okay, so I have more.
Nothing related to Space Force or Air Force, but hey, again, normal people with normal lives that just so happens to have a cool job in the Space Force.
Right.
Yeah. Is what it is.
Yes. And it looks like people are agreeing with us, and they love this Q&A. That's a great note to end this on. Again, just to remind everybody, you should definitely go to airforce.com so that you can look into career opportunities with the Air Force, and some advice that Technical Sergeant Kristopher Jaynes had shared with us was that just be motivated and be willing to learn and just push forward. We're gonna, I'm going to let you all go and enjoy your Friday and enjoy the rest of the hackathon. And just, do you have any last notes to share with the group, Technical Sergeant Jaynes?
Good luck this weekend. Good luck in the future hackathons. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out to your local recruiter. Don't be afraid of them. They're normal people. And again, take a risk and just do it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll catch you all later. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye,
Thanks, everyone.